Hi lovelies, welcome back to my channel. On today's video I'll be showing you how I made this pleated design on a cup I used for a corset dress for a client. So the first thing I did was to get my fabric ready. I'll be using a mirror face lining, and this is the cup I'll be using. This is size 42 cup. I bought it from the market. So the next thing I'll be doing is to measure out the length of this cup, which is 7 inches. So after I measured out the length, I also went on to measure the wideness of this cup. So the wideness gave me 9 inches. So after that, I placed it on the fabric. My actual length is 7, but I made mine 17. Truth be told, this is the first time I'm trying this type of design, and I didn't want to run short of fabric in any way. So that was why I extended it to 17. But I would advise you do not reach 17 if you get 7. You should go like 15 or 14 will be okay for the length. Then I went on to the wideness. For the wideness, that is where you need enough allowance. So the wideness initially gave me 9, but then I made the 25 because these are plinths, and plinths needs enough allowance. So I made my own plinth 25. If your cup size is not up to 42, you can make it like 20 or above 20, but don't go below 20 for it to be enough for you, especially if you're making little plinths. So after I cut it out, I brought my pack of pin, and for this project you should have enough pins, if not a pack of it. So the next thing I did was to place the fabric on the cup this way, because I'll be using my pin to hold it. So I turned it to the wrong side so I'll be able to see it clearly. I turned it this way, and then I used my pin to hold it firmly so it won't move while I'm doing my plinth. You start from the edge of the cup, that is one end of the cup. So after I've held it with the pin, I went on to start my first plinth. So remember the type of plinth you want. If you want a large plinth, you will maintain it to the end. If you want little plinth, you will also maintain it to the end. So for me, I need little plinth, so I'll be maintaining it to the end. So this is my first plinth. I use my pin to hold it firm. Up and down of the cup, I held it with the pin so it won't move too. So after that, I made my second plinth, also a smaller plinth like the first one. I made a small plinth also. And make sure you're folding it in neatly. Fold it in very well and use your pin to hold the ends, 2 ends. That is why you'll be needing enough pin for this. Hold it firmly and pin it to the cup. So don't let them vary in size. Let it have this uniform look. That is how pretty it comes. So finally I got to the end of the plaits I was making. I used my pen to hold the last plait I made. So I wanted to plait another one, but it wasn't enough. That is why I said you should have enough allowance. The last wasn't enough for a plait, so I had to leave it that way because it wasn't too obvious. So I just used my pin to hold it normal, just a normal type of pinning. I just pinned it down there on the cup. So I also made for the other side of this cup, because you know it's 2 cups. I also made for the other side. So after you've pinned this, the next thing will be to iron it. You'll be ironing this with your steam iron. If you don't have a steam iron, just use your normal iron, but let it not be too hot. So after I ironed it, ironed for the both side. I told you guys I'm using 2 of this because this is for a dress I was making. So I ironed it for the both side. So the next thing will be to trim off this excess. I'll be trimming them off. So after I trimmed it off with my scissors, the next will be to stitch it. We'll be stitching this plait on the cup, and you won't stitch directly on the pins. You have to be careful while stitching. So you'll be stitching inside, from inside, so you'll be seeing where you're stitching. On these edges where I'm pointing at, don't stitch inside the cup, just on the edges of the cup, we'll stitch round. So I'm done with the stitchings, and I've also removed the pin, and as you can see, this is looking very beautiful and neat. This is a very neat stitching. Let me know what you think about this cup in the comment section. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Also turn on your notification bell so you'll be notified whenever I post a new video. Thank you. So now the next thing we'll be doing now will be to line up this cup. And for me, I used a cotton lining. So I placed the cup facing the correct side, that is upwards this way. Then I placed my lining on it, and now I'll be stitching it. I'll be stitching my lining to the cup. And then when you're placing it, don't place it on that line, that stitch line you made. Place it above it, slightly above that line you made. And after stitching on it from this end to the other end, after stitching on it, you'll be turning it over. You'll be turning it over like this. So I used a pin to hold it. So it won't shift while stitching. You can use a pin. If not, you can also decide not to use a pin. So I'm done with the stitching. I've also removed the pin I used to hold it. Then the next thing now will be to turn it over. So watch closely how I'm turning it over. You'll be giving it a very hard press, or better still, you can use your iron to press it in. Turn it over this way from one end to the other. Make sure the lining is inside. Make sure the lining doesn't show from upwards. So that is why I said you can use your iron. If not, you can just give it a very hard press. So after you've turned it over completely, the next will be to stitch the other sides of the cup. That is, now we want to cover it completely with the lining. And remember not to drag your lining while you're doing this. Just make sure you give it enough room inside, enough space inside for you to be able to accommodate your books very well. So now we'll be sewing it this way, and the other end we also sew it that same way. So I'm done with the stitching. I gave it a round stitch around the cup, and the next thing I'll be doing now will be to cut out the remaining excess with my pair of scissors. So after cutting this is the final look of this cup, and I must say this is very beautiful. So that is why I want to know what you think about this cup in the comment sections. Thank you for watching this video. See you in my next video. Bye.